Hello, today is the 27th of December 2018, and you're listening to the Australian Cannabis Review podcast. Well, thanks again for joining me after a few weeks away. Hope everyone had a Merry Christmas, and I hope you're all going to have a Happy New Year as well. So for this episode, just going to do a bit of a wrap-up of what's happened in the year of 2018. And first, to begin with, let's start with the Australian cannabis stocks. Now, well, this has been a bit of a down year for Australian cannabis stocks, especially when we're looking that in early January there was a huge spike, and that was mainly due to government changing legislation surrounding medicinal cannabis, and then there was also a bit of a spike around the end of April of this year. And this is roughly around the times when Australian medicinal cannabis stocks reach their all-time highs. Now that we're at the very end of the year and we're having a look at how these stocks have performed, well, it's best to say that it's been pretty shocking. It's been a pretty speculative investment. You could even probably throw this in the ballpark of being in the space of cryptocurrencies. Now, the thing is, they have had a fair bit of a downturn. I guess looking back at hindsight, because this is a new industry and there isn't really much money coming in at the moment, we can see that people have had a bit of a loss on their investment. As you can see, some of the top stocks, if we're looking at them by market cap, so Can Group, they've fallen down, how much is it here? About 50% from their all-time highs. You've got Ozcan down about 70%. The only stock that's really done well over this period of time is Elixinol Global, who, when they had a high of around $1.69 at the end of April, they're now trading at around $2.50. So they've had about a 45% increase. But every other stock in the space has fallen in the space on average about 35-40%. So look, it hasn't been a good year for investors in this space, but looking at the big picture of things, this is a long-term investment. And if we want to have a look or kind of try to paint a picture of what's going to happen for 2019, I think that we might see some more of the same happening. Now, this industry is really based around what the government is going to say, and how they will change the regulations in this space. And this can kind of happen without a whim. I know earlier in the year, Senator Lionhelm put a bill forward. There was a review into this bill for the legalization of cannabis in Australia, and that was rejected. The review sought the recommendation to go against the proposal of legalizing cannabis. So if anything happens in the near future where, say cannabis could be exported, and I'm including the flower as well, because currently the flower isn't able to be exported. So some companies in this space, they are getting some money through sales of their products. They're building infrastructure as well. So maybe if you're lucky, that they might turn into a profit, or there might be another kind of a bull run in this space. But if you're looking at overall markets in general, well, they've kind of been down. The ASX is down about 12-13%. The Nasdaq in America is down about 15%. They had a rise overnight the other day of 5%, but they were kind of officially in bull market territory there as well. The Dow Jones is down. Pretty much stocks from all over the world are down at the moment. So it's not really too much to be surprised by the fact that then cannabis stocks who are still in that speculative space have taken a hit as well, as investors pull money out of their investments. So yeah, looking forward to the year, I think that probably most of these companies still won't be making any kind of substantial revenues. And if we have a look at the market cap of some of these companies, well, we can probably still think that they're still fairly overvalued. So I think in price terms, they could still fall somewhat, But being the speculative space, if the government does, like I've said, make some changes to regulations, then stocks could go up again. But generally, looking at an investment point of view, this is an investment where you should buy and then just hold these stocks for a long period of time. Now, that's a bit of the passive investment strategy, which isn't really something that most investors advise you to do. But especially if you've been investing in this space and you've got money in and you invested earlier on in the year, then you're definitely at a loss right now. And you've either got two options when you're in this position. You either sell now and you cut your losses, or you kind of have a look back at all the research that you've done in the past and you think, has my position on this company changed? What's different? And looking at pretty much most of the main companies in this space, there's a lot more sold than they were 12 months ago at the beginning of the year. So personally, I think that, at least when I'm trading in my super fund, where I have my cannabis stocks, I'm kind of thankful that I kind of sold out of my personal position. I actually sold out last year before that huge spike, but a lot of the stocks are now kind of at the level or below where they were before that spike. So I'm kind of was in a kind of a good position in hindsight to sell out there. But when it comes to my self-managed super fund, well, that's where I'm looking to top up a bit more because some of the prices are a bit lower, and I'll kind of be looking to top up, if the prices continue to fall, because this is, again, a long-term investment of 10 years plus. Even if you're looking at 5 years or so, you're still probably looking to hold those stocks. But on another point of view there, I think that if you do see some sudden price rises, and if you look at some of the articles that's been published on cannabis on the ASX.com, the sector does rise and fall really rapidly and quickly. It's not like some of these big ASX 200 companies where you'll see a gradual increase in price. So I'm thinking that, if you do see some sudden rises and it is legislation based, then definitely sell out and then wait for the new lows. And right now I'm just having a look at the marijuana index in North America, or they call it the North American Marijuana Index. And we saw there in January of this year as well, that really spiked up to around, the number of 350. And then pretty much by March, it had fallen down to about below 250, sitting around 240. In April as well, it was around the 225 mark, made about a 10-15% recovery. But it wasn't really till September where, a spike took off again. And timing in the market is really important, and it's hard to predict these things. But definitely if you had that huge rise at the back end of 2008, 2017, you probably should have sold off those highs and then held off for, a good, couple months, or at least 6 months. And then there was another huge spike from, we're saying mid-August to September, and even up through to mid-October, where the index rose about 50-60%. Now, then after it made that huge rise, it once again, now since kind of November, or when it was a high in mid-October, to now it's fallen again around another 43%. So kind of got to be careful not to get caught up in those highs, and timing is very important. But I think most people here would also be for the long-term investments. So I don't know, if you do see a huge rapid rise, I do definitely recommend taking some profits out of that, and then waiting a while and seeing it decrease. And on the other picture of this though, I think that if you're holding for 5-10 years, then it's probably going to grow a lot more, because this is going to be a multi-billion-dollar industry. Or at least there are people predicting and estimating in the next kind of 5 to 10 years. So, AC8 or AusCan, they did a capital raising of $1.05 per share, which is down from, their all-time high of around $1.75. But now they're trading at around in the mid-50s. And the same thing happened to Can Group, where they were trading at $3.58 at an all-time high. They did a capital raising at $2.50, and now they're trading at $1.71. So there are some kind of discounts where there were a lot of sophisticated investors who invested in these companies, and they paid high premiums. And I don't know if they're still holding or not, but definitely it's not good to compare to the capital raising price. You should definitely have a look at the market cap, the shares on issue, do research who's involved with the company and the company plans. I mean, these companies probably won't actually have some serious revenue in 2019. You're probably going to have to wait till at least 2020, 2021 to get some kind of significant numbers coming in. But a company like Elixir Global, who have grown really well throughout the year, up about 45% since April, they're going to do quite well, and that kind of stems from their business operations in the United States. And kind of stemming from that is that in the second week of December, the Senate passed the Farm Bill, which means it was going to land on the president's desk, and he signed it for approval. So the new US Farm Bill brings into law the legalization of hemp, which has been outlawed for, I think, since the 30s. And hemp has a lot of good properties. You can use it for making paper products as well as for food. So what's going to happen now is that people, can legally grow hemp now. So that's going to really help Elixir's business plan, because now they're going to be able to do all this stuff in the United States. Kind of makes everything a whole lot easier. So look, it's really great news over there in America. Also earlier in October, Canada legalized cannabis for recreational use. Like I've mentioned as well when I was talking about the North American Marijuana Index, a lot of those big stocks such as Tilray, Canopy Growth, Aora, they've all had drops from their all-time highs, probably falling around 50%. But, that was when they reached their all-time highs, they were trading at pretty inflated prices. Even what they're worth now is probably overvalued to what they could potentially be worth. So, if there is a kind of economic shakedown, then definitely those prices will continue to fall. But it all really depends on the figures that they release in their upcoming reports and how many sales they get. And I think they will probably struggle to kind of meet the expectations that people are hoping. But once again, this is a really long-term play. And, once these companies' kind of financials start to come good from the sale and of cannabis, and this will probably happen, once the kind of sector settles a bit more. Another great bit of news was that coming from Southeast Asia, where Thailand has legalized medicinal cannabis. Now, Thailand's a country with some of the world's strictest laws on cannabis. People have been put to death for containing, small quantities of the drug. So, look, it's another kind of footprint on the planet where medicinal cannabis is accessible for patients. Once again, it's really not clear how the medicinal cannabis will be supplied to patients. But look, it's another head in the positive direction. It's happening a lot in Europe. We're seeing it in Australia. A lot's happening in South America at the moment as well, where it's legalized in a number of countries. Canada's got it for recreational purposes. There's going to be about 30 plus states in America who have got it, I think, for medicinal purposes as well, plus the number of states that have it for recreational purposes is going to increase throughout 2019, I believe. So just another step that Asia is looking into this, and it's got quite a big population. It's definitely a step in the right direction, and the world in general in this space is heading in the right direction. So there's definitely a boom in this space at the moment. It's probably been a tough year for cannabis stock investors, as I've mentioned. But look, don't invest any more money that you either can afford to lose, and this is something to be patient about. I mean, there was a huge kind of there was a huge kind of interest in it, and that's one of the things that really drove the prices up a whole lot, especially through that back end of 2017 in Australia, and then kind of in the first quarter of 2018 in Australia. Same thing happened in North America. the end of 2017. There was an interest in early 2018, and then once again around that September-October timeframe. So I don't know, now with the kind of economy in a bit of a downturn, it's kind of hard to say what should be done. Once again, I think you should do your own research. I think it's really hard to pinpoint a time when you can get in. So I guess the best advice is that now could be a good time, but maybe don't put your whole savings into it. Maybe make sure that you can then buy on the dips if the prices go down. But once again, it's just some educational and entertainment advice. These are just my own thoughts of how I think the industry could go, and I still think it's slightly overvalued. It's kind of looking good, a good position to get in on these stocks. But yeah, it's time will really tell, and how the government reacts to it, especially in Australia. That'll be a major thing. But the heat's definitely gone out of some of the stocks, so maybe it's a all right time. But that's enough from me anyway. So hope everyone had an awesome 2018. I'll probably be back again in early 2019 with some more Australian cannabis review news and information. I might even get some interviews in for 2018 as well. We've got some of that in the pipeline. But yeah, thanks to all those listening. Once again, hope you had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. My name's Dan, and you have been listening to the Australian Cannabis Review podcast, and I'll catch you all next year. Bye-bye.